Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone. Hope you're having a fine Tuesday. Coming to you from a different location today, so back in the office in Parnell. Just wait a couple more moments to bring everyone in. Hold fire. Great. Well, hi everyone. As I mentioned, new location today. So after 2.5 months, I've moved out of the garden shed and back in the office at EBOSS. And I will refer to that in a little bit in a short while, just as part of the focus for today, which is part of our 4-week series around keeping up to date with market trends and specifically feedback on what's working and the effectiveness of how we deliver our specification services, and in particular webinars, which is what we'll work on and go through today. Got 30 minutes, happy to take questions or comments anytime through the presentation. First of all, a big part of the recovery is dependent on us and how quickly we're going to get out and about into the cities and regions of New Zealand. So just interested to get your feedback on what you're doing over the next month, and if you have any plans to travel and explore our finer shores, or whether or not you're staying put. So I will just leave that running in the background. It's good for us to reflect on where we've come from. So this is a photo of me and my 3 boys, local beach in Auckland, and this was on the eve of lockdown. So at that point we were still swimming, and obviously now things are a bit colder and thinking about life a little bit differently. But at this point here, it was sort of the last day I was actually in the EBOSS office. So 2.5 months later, it's good for us to reflect on not only what we're doing differently and how the market's changed, but what we need to focus on to be successful. Okay. Let's just have a quick look at our poll and see what we're saying. So most of us are either are committed to going away or thinking about it. So I think that's pretty positive. The PM would be pretty happy if I saw those stats, and they were a general representation of the population. So well done. I hope you enjoy wherever you're planning to go. Okay, right. Now, purpose of these huddles is thinking about the effectiveness of specification and a balance of face-to-face and digital engagement. So what I am interested in is what's the role of us being able to deliver information virtually, digitally, using forums and online meetings, because it's extremely effective. We've been doing it with suppliers for the last 4 weeks. And as I mentioned, we've had up to 60 practices engaged. So incredibly efficient use of our time and great coverage if we do it successfully. As I mentioned, in most cases, I think the presentations could be a lot more effective. So today, I want to go over 5 mistakes to avoid, just to help you in your preparation for obviously the presentations you've already committed to, or if you're thinking about doing in the future, what you should be bearing in mind. All right. Now, I'm just going to check the Q&A and chat. Better coffee. Okay, so coffee better in Parnell than it is at home. Victoria, I don't actually drink coffee. I'm actually going to say the tea is poorer. I've got my own blends at home, but talking to the architects here, they're very pleased to be back in Parnell. So to answer your question, yes, the coffee is better here. Okay, thank you for that. Right, so 5 mistakes to avoid. I think we as a profession can lift our game to position ourselves in the eyes of architects as professional technical consultants, not sales reps. And I think this is the number one objective when we're looking at doing webinars. So the idea is that we concentrate on our ability to be able to support architects, enable them to do better design, give them better certainty in terms of what they're delivering in comparison to their clients' needs, and also in terms of compliance. Too many presentations I see product focus, and the presenter is positioned as a sales rep. I think it's a fundamental option here that we can make of what do we want to be seen as. And in my mind, the opportunity that lends itself with webinars is to see ourselves as consultants and someone of real value with real expertise in the eyes of the architect. Okay. I think we should all agree that good business is on understanding and solving our client or customers' problems. And when we are given the opportunity to present to them, we need to have a really careful balance of how much, the part the product actually plays in that. And my view is if we can engage them early with problems or solutions, some design insights, upskilling, and then bring in product later as part of that solution, would be a lot more effective in terms of our objectives, which is about retention of information and intention to contact in the future. My view on webinars is the objective is not that people have an understanding of our products, and from that they'll look at specifying it. It's about creating a really strong context which demonstrates our expertise and the solutions that we provide. Okay. Secondly is thinking about the structure and design of the presentation. So as I mentioned last week, we had a 1 hour-long webinar. It took 8 minutes for the presenter to actually get into the content. So they spent a lot of time introducing the company, the portfolio, the location of their reps. Really got to think about, the purpose of why people are attending, and think about what are the 2 or 3 things we actually want them to remember. And the design of the presentation is important. You have a look at this background, and certainly if I go to a wider screen, I could be anywhere. I could be in a prison cell. I could be in any office around the world. I got lots of great feedback from presenting in a work shed. There's interest there, there's intrigue, there's context, there's questions, discussions. I'm not saying we should all do that, but think about the way that we're presenting ourselves. Whether I could put a pull-up banner here with EBOSS on it, or use one of the virtual backgrounds. I think if we can create a background of interest, again, it just provides just some more intrigue and another layer that we can add to our presentation experience. Let me just get back to where we were. Cool. So think about that presentation. Need to make sure that we've got well constructed content, and that we get into that quickly. And it's interesting, when I was looking at some research, I kind of like numbers. When I saw that the majority of presentations that were being conducted through our platform, I didn't think were well organized. I was concerned about audience abandonment. But to be honest, I didn't actually see that. If we had 42 people at the front at the beginning of the session, we would have 40 at the end. So weren't seeing big drop-offs, but what I was concerned about is the fact that the content wasn't memorable. There are no fish hooks in there. There was, the context wasn't established, and I just didn't feel like the sentiment would remain. We want to be memorable. We want to have content in here which grabs people and resonates for them to reflect on afterwards. Let's also remember to be visually focused, small number of words on the screen. And there's some good science which suggests that if we back up our verbal commentary with images, we're actually going to increase the memory of that information by 500%. Whatever the number is, it's a lot. So the fact that we can have really strong imagery representing what we're talking about is super important. Second part of this is our ability to tell stories. And I really like case studies. I think if we can use a project example to reinforce the point of our involvement as design consultants, design experts, and positioning our product, we've got a much better chance of that being remembered than if we just have an example in isolation. So whether or not you've got permission to talk about a project, sometimes they're highly sensitive clients, whether they're high net worth individuals or high profile commercial clients. Maybe we can just use imagery which doesn't actually represent or identify a project, but we need to be able to talk about the context. So and embed that in a short story. Okay, attention. So if we're conducting webinars or online meetings, let's use a poll, let's create some context, let's bring the audience in, let's get their attention from the beginning, and let's also check in quickly. So early in the presentation, we want to be able to ensure that we've got some level of engagement. Need to establish that early. Most presentations I see is they get through right to the end and then stop and go, right, any questions? Can create this quite awkward moment. So yeah, let's not leave questions till the end, and make sure you've got some questions prepared. It's really important to be able to have something seeded that you can refer to. And if you're not too technically advanced, maybe for the first few, I'd advise having someone in the background if you're running polls or doing Q&A or a chat line to help you with that until you can master some of the tools, whether using Teams, Hangouts, or Zoom. Okay, I want to pause there. Any comments or questions before I get into our final two? We've got about 15 minutes left. One thing I also want to encourage is that I've got 2 more sessions. If there's anything you'd like me to cover, do some investigation over the next couple of weeks, please drop me a line and let me know. More than happy to embed some other topics and what the information we're covering here. I know I've got some opinionated people in the audience here, so I'm sure there's a few comments that you must have around this information. Am I covering anything new here? Do we already know this? Or are we just reinforcing good behavior? What are your thoughts? Okay, yep. Okay, comment here around, sometimes it's actually really difficult to balance talking about solutions when you've got a product which is not technical. And I do get that. And that's actually a nice segue into number 4, a fourth thing to avoid, is that I want to talk about the role of face-to-face and image, thanks to SBS Building. So thanks, Chris and team. When we're doing face-to-face presentations, if we can get specifiers to touch and feel our product, to smell it, we've got 3 to 5 times a memory recall than if it is a non-tactile experience. So our focus when face-to-face is around networking. It's about building relationships, being seen, but also to create this memorable experience. Whether we leave the samples with them or not, still need to ensure that there's some product there for them to grab, knock, bend, twist, smell. So face-to-face is, we need to, it's a real strength and we need to focus on it. Online, we can't do that. We don't have the ability to be tactile, but we do have this big screen right in front of every single individual who's attending our webinar. So let's get in and focus about detail. Let's really think about the intricacies of what we're trying to explain. It's really difficult to do that when we've actually got a group of 50 or 60 people. We've got one screen, but the fact that you guys can see this image really clearly right in front of you allows us to be, detailed in our delivery. We need to demonstrate that we like detail and we have a real intent to work with architects to get the right outcome and make sure there's a huge level of confidence in the design. Remember, with these interactions, we want the more focused we can be on the architect's problem areas, the more confident they will be when we're dealing with really specific content and examples. I assure you, the people who are attending, they will really appreciate the detail. So people who have presented through our program, who have got into detail, the feedback I've got from architects has been really appreciative. So let's focus in on what online can really assist us with, and that's about getting into the specifics. And that really nicely matches what we do face-to-face, which is around the networking, reading body language, and getting that strong tactile experience. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is timing. So when we researched what are the most effective days and times to run webinars or online meetings, Tuesdays have the highest level of registrations, but it's actually Wednesdays and Thursdays which have the highest levels of attendance. And you're thinking, Matt, you're an idiot. Why are you running these things on Tuesday? Well, what we found as in the early days is we had some guest speakers. That's when they were available. So we just kind of stuck with it, and we found that Tuesdays have worked well. And also Wednesdays and Thursdays we've kept free for our program to architects. So that's where we want to get your content in front of a wide national specifier audience. So we've prioritized you over our own needs. So Wednesdays and Thursdays, in terms of timing, you can obviously hear that I'm in the office and we've got nice hard floors, between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. So that's the key zone for us to target. Now, last week we had 70 of you said, hey Matt, you know what? We're looking at doing on average 4 webinars over the next month. So that's nearly 300 webinars are going to be going on in the next 4 weeks. So we should expect it to be a pretty busy time out there because they're all targeting the same audience, same architects. So we need to think about the content that we're delivering. The focus needs to be better than anyone else. And that's the purpose of our session. What we're covering today is I want you guys to be as effective as possible, because there's going to be lots of competition for eyeballs and ears and architects over the next 4 weeks. We're even hearing of people just cold call or just cold emailing architects and not even approaching them personally with an invite, but just sending them a blanket, hey, we're doing a webinar next week. So there's just some blatant mass marketing going on. We need to ensure we get cut through. Also, in terms of timing, we need to respect the audience's time, and from what I've seen, 30 minutes max. So we've talked about hour-long CPD presentations. I touched on that last week. If we can get focused and make sure that we are delivering, a really specific messaging, we don't have to cover everything, but just get focused and hold their attention. We're looking at 15 to 20-minute presentations. So we're not even going to half an hour. I think they'll appreciate that, and it gives you the opportunity to get them further engaged in a series of content where you can cover specific topics at different times. Okay. Also, in terms of timing, it's important we think about how we get people to attend. So I was amazed that the majority of registrations that we get received within, the last 24 hours. So we don't have to actually have a long runway in getting to, to inviting people to attend. So let's think about how we're going to do that, but be consistent right up to, the time we actually start presenting. And how do we actually get people to attend? Well, the correlation between email invites, registration, and attendance is so much higher than any other channel. An interesting point here, just remember to continue to promote your presentation after you've actually presented it. So international research suggests that up to 26% of total registrations are people who don't even intend to attend your live webinar. They're solely focused on watching the content at a later date. So irrespective of the number of people who you've got actually turning up, you'll have another quarter of people who will intend to watch it at a later date. Okay, now with that in mind, we are actually going to run a half-day workshop. We want to ensure that our clients are delivering online presentations with impact. So we're going to spend 3 hours. We're going to have maximum of 30 people who are catching up with us in Parnell on the 8th of July. So we'll do it in the morning. I'll be there, and we'll also have a sales coach as well. And our focus is going to be on improving both presentation skills, so our delivery of information to increase effectiveness, but also the focus. Thinking about how are we as technical salespeople presenting to architects. And so we're going to spend probably a third of the time on tips and tricks and presenting, and then 2/3 on actually building your own presentation that you will be able to give to architects. So we'll give you the structure I believe will increase the effectiveness of getting those key messages across. Now, Nancy, if you don't mind putting a link to the registration page just on the chat line, you guys can click in on that and have a look at more information. And if you'd like to come along and join me, we'll have a bit of fun, opportunity to network with many other reps. Networking is always great. Improve your presentation skills to give you some more confidence in being able to present information online, and to start honing the content to get that cut through. Okay, I am going to leave it there and see some of your comments. So 5 things to avoid. Hopefully you've seen that there's a positive spin on that in terms of there's some really quick fixes you all can concentrate on. Thanks, Nancy. Cheers for doing that. I think there is some great opportunities to really be able to stand out from the other content that exists. So I think the bar is pretty low at the moment. My view in terms of the mix of face-to-face and online, we're actually hearing from practices that they're looking forward to seeing people come in, a little bit hesitant around larger scale events, but Ignite and JASMAX confirmed last week to us that we're going to be back in there with our program kicking off the 3rd of July. So that's a really good sign. So the big practices are typically the last to get started, and we're looking at engaging our movie nights in August. All right, Victoria, contact details on the screen while you do a Q&A. Really good point. So Victoria's saying it's really nice to have your details online when you are talking to people and doing a Q&A session, because it's a nice way for them to discreetly get your contact details and they can contact you then offline. So no, definitely agree with that. When we kind of looked at the research around engagement, we found that online chat and the Q&A, if we get people engaged in it, they actually feel quite comfortable. These are people who sit at their computers all day, and so the ability to type in a message or comment is something that becomes pretty easy to them if they're engaged. Unlike you guys, typically I'm inundated with comments, but quiet today. Must have lots going on. So look, from here, in fact, I'm just going to run an exit poll. I just want to make sure that I'm on the money here with the content that we're covering, and any feedback around what we can concentrate on the next couple of weeks, let me know. I'm trying to get some forecast information around building consent forecasts. So I'd like to have a bit of a market update in our next session, but interested in your feedback. Okay, hey, well that's me. I appreciate your attendance today, and look forward to hearing some stories around your presentations and engagement over the next few weeks, and look forward to seeing some of you on July the 8th in Parnell at our workshop. Just a comment around market updates from Darren. That would be useful. It seems to be a lot of variation at the moment. Yeah, Darren, I agree. And look, no one knows what's going to happen here, but I think for us to share information and developments is really important. The more up-to-date and high-quality information we have, the high quality our decision making can be. So yeah, so let's all have a very productive week. Go well out there. Any feedback, let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks all.